Start now. How do you want to be now? Treat others how you would be treated now, as if you were already the CEO in whoever you encounter. So it's a similar answer to what I had before. Be present now and be who you want to be now in the future. Start now doing what you want to be.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Leadership Stack Podcast, the podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs to increase your leadership, teamwork, and profits. This is your host, Sean C., aka Mr. CEO at 22.
Be who you are uniquely in the present moment now, and don't wait to be something till later. Be it now, and then let it grow.
One of the things that a lot of our listeners are wondering about, when I become CEO, Sean, how do I get into this servant leadership mindset? Because all too many CEOs are just jackasses. And I know that I started as one personally. And how do you learn what it is to be a servant leader? How do you learn what it is to be the right kind of CEO?
And that's a great question. And that is something that, again, by me having the seeking out leaders, seeking out mentors, seeking out advisors, reading books, going to workshops, going to seminars, and now in this day and age with YouTube, podcasts, all of these types of things, you can see examples of people that are creating purpose-driven businesses and are creating happiness and harmonious things for their employees, for the community. And I believe that in the world and the universe, and I think that the coronavirus has leveled the playing ground and is going to force the world to evolve at a much faster, a radical rate of growth in many areas in both. I mean, just think about Zoom in general. Zoom was doing pretty good before the virus. Their stock and their value of their product and offering skyrocketed to an unimaginable use factor, value factor, acceptable factor, and massively profitable factor. So that caused something to mushroom and grow and to magnify. And it also allowed us to realize that whether you're in Manila or China or Mexico, if you get coronavirus, you get coronavirus. Doesn't care if you're rich, poor, or women or male. We're all universal. If you lose a grandmother or father, it's the same feeling. And so having compassion for that human experience, and now realizing, I was just watching a show last night on PBS, which is a public broadcasting system, and it's his name is Monty. He was the COO for Chipotle, which is a very large Mexican chain food here. And, he's a very, very wealthy man. He's probably worth a couple $100 million or more. And he's doing a show on television called Connect, the universal desire to connect with others. And he's traveling the world, the country, meeting with different groups of people from all walks of life, talking to them about humanity. And he ran his company that way. And so for when someone says, Sean, when I become the CEO, how can I do this? I have said this for many, many years, and I did this as an employee. I am already a CEO in my own mind. If you are an employee right now, in your own world, you have to think of yourself as a CEO now. A CEO simply represents Chief Executive Officer. Well, if you're sitting at your home working remotely, if you're sitting in an office, if you're a manager, if you're an HR director, if you're a restaurant worker, in what you do every day, you are your own chief executive officer as how you show up, the output that you do, what energy you put off, how much revenue you can create or how many expenses you can save, what legal issues you can help protect, how you can make the customer feel better. Can you make a difference in your community right where you're at right now? If you shift your consciousness that you already are a chief executive officer of your own life, of your own work environment, and even though your box may be smaller about where you have chief executive officer decisions, you still in your chair, around you in a circle, through your computer, through emails, you are a chief executive officer as to how you show up in the world. So start now. How do you want to be now? Treat others how you would be treated now, as if you were already the CEO in whoever you encounter. So it's a similar answer to what I had before. Be present now and be who you want to be now in the future. Start now doing what you want to be.
That is an amazing answer. I just want to say that's the first time I've heard of it. It's an amazing answer. And I'm just taking notes. Now, I want to talk a little bit about your book, Iggy. How did you come about that idea? And a lot of people don't really think about their ego. A lot of people. I know I haven't thought about it for a very long time until last year when the pandemic came. And I was looking at myself from a third-party perspective, and I just realized what an asshole I have become. And I need to do a lot of improvements, get out of my, get my head out of my ass and treat others better, way better than they deserve. I have super high standards at work, and I expect everyone to achieve that. And when they don't, I don't give them a good word. I don't give them a pat on the back. But it's just something that I realize I should do. When they do work, 80%, maybe even 50, 60% as well as I expected, I should say, hey, good job. And that's something I realized in my thorough introspection of myself last year. But if I didn't do that, if I didn't pause and think about my ego and think about these things, I would never have come to that conclusion. And I know so few people get to that. How did you come upon the idea of inviting God in and tackling your ego? What was the turning point or the aha moment with that? Can you tell us about that story?
Yeah, it definitely was an evolution over the years for sure, but a few distinct ones that were some brick upside the head moments in addition to getting fired is I've always had a very big appetite for life and for absorbing things. And it's a bit of an overzealousness for all or none. I'm an all or none kind of guy. So when I'm in something, that's why when I'm in that space of not feeling happy or not feeling joyful or not liking what I do, I have to be all in something because it makes me feel more alive. It makes me feel more fulfilled. So I don't have the ability to stay unhappy or unjoyful for very long. And I started self-evaluating myself just consciously and through my notes and through taking notes. But many years ago, I got a daily scorecard that was presented to me through a workshop that I went through, actually. It was a men's workshop, and it had a scorecard it was called the 4 Bs, and I've since adjusted it and adapted it and now called it the 4 Bs, but it was having a daily scorecard. But the 4 Bs that I use is that you have your body, your being, your bonds, and your business. I needed to have a daily scorecard that was simply scoring myself on my body, my being, and my bonds and my business. And so I was scoring myself on, am I healthy? Am I eating right? Am I exercising? Do I have energy? And there were many years that wasn't the case. At one point in my life, I was over 300 pounds. I was a fat, working, big dude, still climbing the corporate ladder and still couldn't eat enough and drink enough because I was one of those work hard, play hard kind of guy. So when I finally realized, okay, I got to get that in check, then, I started being much more aware of it. And I realized that was my ego was clearly damaged in being overweight and being overcompensating in a lot of ways. The being is your connection with whatever you call higher source, Mother Nature, universe, God, Yahweh, Buddha, Muhammad. It doesn't matter to me what you call it, but there's some kind of a relationship that we all have to admit, whether we believe in God or not, that there's some energy outside of ourselves that makes the sun go up and down every day. The tides come in and out. Birds chirp, babies be born. There's something higher than ourselves that's some kind of an energy that's not me that's making all that happen. So that connection, I personally call God. I had a very structured belief on how I saw God. And over the years, it actually has evolved. I have a much bigger consciousness about God than I used to. And I call myself more of a spiritual mutt. I'm kind of an Eastern philosophy, Western philosophy, Buddhism meets Christianity, kind of connected spiritualist. But all of those things have purpose and meaning. So that has to show up in my life every day in some fashion. And so I score myself on my being. My bonds are my relationship in my family and my relationships outside of my family. And on a daily basis, am I proud of myself, how I show up every day? Am I proud at the end of the day that when I put my head on my pillow, that I treated my family with respect, kindness, love, joy, and I showed them appreciation and love and respect? And did I do that outside of my family? And if the answer is no, and I can think of 4 or 5 people that I was rude to, short to, hurt to, cut down, whatever, then I scored myself low. And then the last one was my business, which is working on your business and working in your business. So every day I was just trying to get to 4 points. So body, being, bonds, and business. And then I would score myself. And at the end of the week, I was trying to get to 28 points. Very rarely did I ever get to 28 points. I might be at 25 or 24. So beyond having this vision and beyond having these business plan, accountability, just like when you're tracking your numbers in your business, your sales record, if you're doing digital marketing, what are your different metrics for that? So for me, this body, being, bonds, and business for all of us helps me track and measure my asshole factor, my ego factor, am I showing up in the world? And if I'm not, am I going to let another day go by that I don't do something about it? Am I going to let another day go that I'm not treating my wife with respect? Am I going to let another day go by that I eat unhealthy? Am I going to and if the answer is yes, well, then I'm going to do another day. If not, what am I going to do about it? So this awareness of accountability led me to understanding more about my ego. And I continued to read and pray and meditate. But then during that process, I had kind of a spiritual awakening, if you would. The one thing that I was not getting under check, as I mentioned to you, was the body. And beyond the eating and beyond was alcohol. And I became a functioning alcoholic in today's terms. I still had the suit and tie. I still was climbing the ladder, but I could drink anybody under the table, and alcohol started becoming a very big presence in my life. And it worked. I still worked every day. I still, had success on the outside, but it was starting to chip away at my soul. And it was starting to control my mind and my thinking. And I was starting now to be reliant upon it. I started really diminishing my family. My wife almost left me. And I had a daughter at the time who was about 13. Yeah, I must have been making promises for quite some time about not drinking as much or whatever, because there was always those promises. And I came home from work one night and my daughter had taken every alcohol bottle in the house, poured it in the sink, put it in a big wicker basket on the middle of our kitchen counter. And at the time, there was something called a Yellow Pages, which is like a phone book that you would open up, because this was, 18 years ago. And it had a big circle around Alcoholics Anonymous. And there was a note that just said, "You need help." And it was from my daughter. And I was like, oh my God. Felt horrible for her. I felt embarrassed. I felt shame. The next, I woke up and I literally had this epiphany of my life is going to deteriorate and go down the toilet really quickly, because I've lost control, even though on the surface I look like I'm carrying it all. And I was in the shower, and I'll never forget it. I had this vision. I had 2 holograms pop up at once. I was in the shower and I was so hungover. And I was supposed to be going to a really important meeting, getting on my tie and getting my suitcase, my briefcase. And one hologram was like this decrepit, old looking homeless man, kind of, that just looked depressed and beat up from life. And I knew that was potentially me. And then I looked over in this other hologram as I'm in the shower, just not looking, but visually. And I saw somebody kind of how I look now, that vibrant, full of life, healthy, and just like living life fully and purposely. And I realized both of those people were me, and that I had a choice to make that day. Like, I knew I had to choose that day. And if I didn't choose, I had just chosen. Like, I knew if I didn't choose that day, that ego portion that I needed to be more important about alcohol and serving myself than serving others was going to control me. And I went out that next day and got help, and I got alcohol help, and I haven't had a drink in 18 years. And that helped me to start connecting higher to spirituality and to making the shift and the change that my ego was no longer serving me at a high level, and that my ego needed to be put in check.
And people could get your book from Amazon.
It's on Amazon. Yeah. Well, the first book that I wrote is called From Lead to Gold. Plays up on the alchemy theme. My company's called Alchemy Advisors, which talks about transformation. And so the first book, which is 4 or 5 years old, was called From Lead to Gold. And the newest book is called The Iggy Principles. And it looks like this. And it's on Amazon, on hard copy, Kindle. And there's videos in the book. So it's an interactive book. It's a text copy. And then at the end of every chapter, there's a QR code that takes you to a couple-minute video that I filmed about each chapter. And if you're on your Kindle or your iPad, you can just click on the link and it'll take you to a video. And then there's social media swipes that are at the end of every chapter that you can go to a website and get social media swipes. So it's an interactive multimedia book called The Iggy Principle. So you can find that on Amazon. And then if people wanted to reach out to me for any reason, I'm at steverodgers.net. And Rodgers, like you were saying earlier, instead of Chris Evans, which is the actor for Captain America that you and I talked about, Steve Rodgers is my name, which is the name for Captain America, the superheroes like you have on the behind your wall there. But my site is Steve, and then Rodgers has a D in it, which the other Steve Rodgers doesn't. So it's RODGERS.net, steverodgers.net, and all my stuff connect on there. Social media, blogs, videos are there as well.
Awesome. And we will have all of those links, including your books, on the show notes on leadershipstack.com. Well, Steve, it has been an amazing time. I have taken so much notes, and I'm going to be posting them on my social media platforms. And of course, I'm going to be quoting you as the source. I learned a lot, and I hope you guys tuning in have learned a lot from Steve. Before I let you go, what is one major thing that you would give as an advice to people who have been doing business or who have lost their jobs, and those entrepreneurs are just their business is not doing well during this time, or the employees, they're losing their work, or they're not performing that well, or they quit altogether, or they got fired during the pandemic, what would be your one big advice for them?
It's going to be an odd answer that you probably won't expect. I always stress this point about the power of forgiveness. And what I mean by that is one of the highest principles that I have learned beyond love, beyond skills, beyond job skills, beyond how to, be in an interview, is the power of understanding that forgiving someone or forgiving something or asking for forgiveness, just like I was talking to, when you break through fear, on the other side of that is power. What happens is when we get fired or we're not working, we get into fear and we typically start blaming someone. And we typically are resentful to someone. And I might be somebody that was immediately from that experience. It could have been a mother or a father or brother that you haven't spoken to in years. And what I tell people is, yes, get the resume in check. Yes, create the business plan. Yes, this is the time to break out and create a new business model. All of those things that's business oriented. But find out really in your heart of hearts right now, who you need to ask for forgiveness from, or who you need to forgive. And if you spend a little time focused on that beyond the other stuff, you would be amazed if you could really get to doing that and reaching out to them or asking for it. Just like on the other side of fear is power, that forgiveness unlocks a door. It unlocks an unconscious door of inspiration. It unlocks an unconscious door of unexpected energy and a surge of power that you didn't even know you were lacking. So I would say that the power of forgiveness, and then get on with the next thing and realize, just like my brick upside the head moment where I got fired after I was the CEO, I had the title, I had the job, I had a driver, I had all of the stuff that you would want. I either could lick my wounds and realize, oh shit, I got fired and life sucks. And there's the meltdown in the real estate mortgage market and the world is horrible. Or I could say, what a great gift this is. And that's what I said. I called my wife that day and I said, honey, are you ready for a big adventure? She's like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? I go, I just got fired. I said, I'm ready to go. And in that moment, I said, I'm going to go create my own company. And she burst into tears. Like, what do you mean you got fired? And tears on the other end of the phone. But I immediately got into the power of taking action and then immediately not blaming somebody who did something to me. I said, what a great gift. What a great gift. Now, I had days and weeks after that I still was licking wounds and all of that. But I immediately in my mind, I have to get to what a great gift. What's the lesson in this? And do I need to forgive anybody right now? So that's probably not the answer you were expecting, but it really is a powerful thing. If people can wrap their heads around and their heart around that and actually do that, it will unleash a lot of things for you unexpectedly that you didn't even know you were tapping into.
Perhaps a lot of people need to hear that, and they're not hearing it from anyone else. It is an unusual answer. It may well be an answer that a lot of people listening in here need to hear. So thank you for that, Steve. And it's an amazing interview. That much I can say. I learned a lot. I know our listeners learned a lot. I just want to thank you for being here today.
Thanks for the invite. Thanks for having me. And thanks for the great questions. And continue your work of your purpose-driven stuff. You are at the infancy stages of blossoming into something that your vision will be from here to here, and you will have this space, so you're on the right track. So don't let the hurdles and bumps or any expectations that you have in your own life, because we all need to hear more of what you're doing. So keep it coming.
Thanks so much. God bless.
A lot of people kasi think that if they write and hit the publish button, okay na yun. Like, people will just read because it's a great piece of content. No, that's not true. If you don't promote it, no one's gonna read that stuff, however great it is.